If you're broke free to play, you need to build these characters. In Wuthering Waves, you don't necessarily have to spend an ounce of money at all in order to beat everything. And these are the best characters that you need to get built as a free to play or maybe as a player in general because they are very good. Which is why we have today's presentation. Broke people must build characters by a broke person. You can tell I'm broke by the salesman tie-off guide. Let us start with the slides, but firstly though, disclaimer as usual, all information are based on CBD3. Things could change with official release. And secondly, I've gathered most of these sources from Bilibili. I've credited every footage so you can find the links down below. And now that we're done, let's start with the first slide. A message to all broke people. The thing about 5 stars are that they have better base stats than 4 stars, which immediately puts them a tier above. That's normal, right? But in Wuthering Waves, 5 stars just generally have better kit anyway. So if you were to choose between building a Caocharo or Yinlin versus all of this that I'm about to list out, you built the good 5 stars. Well, unless the second point here, you're doing a challenge, which is totally fine. It's your game, right? And now we can finally start. The top choice that you must build as a free-to-play player is this person. We've got Baizhi. Let's break down what is her role. She is Verena Light. That can pretty much explain what she does. She can heal, she can buff. That's the 2 things you want from her. Straightforward, direct value to you. The only big difference that she really has as compared to Verena are the base stat, of course. And on top of that, Verena gives you the buff you need by just doing an outro skill. Baizhi, however, is a bit different. When Baizhi uses her skill, she'll drop some buffs. You have to go pick up those buffs with your characters in order to gain those buffs. Less convenient than Verena, so Verena Light. However, one of the main reasons why you must build this character anyway, assuming you can't get Verena because you are free to play, she is usable in any team comps. And the third point is my favorite one. As a person who would steal bread from children, I like free things. And Baizhi is free. You just gotta play the game. Which brings us to the 4th point. She's a near must build for non-Verena owners. This is just generally speaking because there's gonna be a lot of people that tries to go without a healer. That can totally work if you're good enough. But if you're just a player that wants to have a balanced team comp that can handle any situations, having a healer is gonna help you out with that. As for a team example, here I have a really, early game team. Baizhi, Sanhua, Yang. All 3 of them are free and they'll just function fine. Are there anything impressive though? Definitely not. They're not really perfect synergy wise, like you're kind of wasting Sanhua's glacial damage boost. Speaking of which, Baizhi is glacial, but let's not ask her to do damage, okay? And that I think is the top choice, but it's important to note that you can go without a healer. 100% you could. You just gotta be good enough. Evade all the damage, parry every hit. You know what? You don't need no healer. And I would say world exploration. Of course, you wouldn't need a healer. The mobs aren't anything too insane. In endgame abyss, where 3 different teams, your weaker team might need that healer. That's what I personally think. But either way, let's just move on. We have our second freebie. We got the Rover. Unlike a lot of other games, the main character in Wuthering Waves are actually pretty good. To summarize what she or he can do, the time stop outro skill, plus she or he does decent damage. The time stop outro skill is only for 3 seconds and it's honestly nothing insane. But where she truly shines is where she does decent damage. As a newer player without a lot of DPS options, Rover is someone that, well, you know what? If you just have the worst luck of all times, you somehow don't get a 5 star, I don't know how. And Rover can actually be your main carry DPS, especially early game. Her damage is not to be underestimated, but let's not overestimate it either. It is just a decent damage dealer. And well, it's what broke people have instead of options. The 3rd point here though is actually pretty interesting. She's fairly strong with Yinlin. So if you're pulling for Yinlin, you know how good she is. Rover's damage that's a bit lackluster compared to say pairing Yinlin with Caocharo will be boosted up by Yinlin too. Not saying she'll overtake Caocharo in terms of damage, but if you're someone who really wants to just save every summon you have for Yinlin, guess what? You can just run Rover as the main TPS, go for maybe, multiple Yinlins, go for her weapons as well, making her a very valuable character in your arsenal. If you're not just spending and getting everything, of course. And there's also the fact that the Rover has high potential in the future. Now, this is the main character, so we know that main characters in these games usually, the farther you progress through the story, they're gonna unlock, a superpower, multiple elements. With Genshin Impact, the MC, I've heard, isn't anything crazy, but with Honkai Star Rail, the MC is insane. So with Rover right now at base level, we can already say she's decent. There's a high chance that as the story progresses, you're gonna, oh shit, I'm about to die, let me transform, and she could just become good. Definitely worth a build for free to play. A team example for Rover can easily be Baizhi / Verena. You just want that healer slot with buffs as well, always nice. You want Rover heal herself, and finally you want just any support / sub DPS you have. This is kind of dependent on your account, right? Come on, you're not gonna pull nothing, okay? Like, you're gonna have something, trust me. And these are actually the 2 characters that I think for free to plays are highly valuable to build them. Moving on, we have non-free characters, but they are definitely more accessible than say a 5 star. The first one we have Mortefi. This guy, he is a top tier heavy / basic attack support. The most obvious thing is that his outro skill has a heavy attack damage boost, but let me show you how he's really good. This guy's really good because his ultimate causes extra hits if your allies do basic or heavy attacks. This is his bread and butter, and on the screen right now you're gonna see Mortefi being insane. Like, I don't even think you understand what's what's happening. To summarize what happened, Jian has a lot of sources of basic and heavy attacks, especially after his ultimate. So Mortefi, with every hit that Jian does, that's a basic or a heavy attack, does damage as well with his ultimate. So you just get Wuthering Waves of damage. Alright, I'll stop. The third point here though is also pretty important. He requires suitable team setup, but also can be near irreplaceable. If you know how Yinlin is really good, where you swap into Kaocharo, Yinlin has just marked the enemy, you keep attacking with Kaocharo, Yinlin does extra damage as well. Mortefi does something similar, but not nearly as good as Yinlin. If you're using Yinlin in one of your best teams, Mortefi can easily be on another. Pair him in the right team setup where the moment you use his ulti, you can spam some heavy attacks, spam some basic attack with someone else. He'll be the best support you can ask for right there. Of course, he certainly doesn't beat Yinlin though, but as a 4-star support, right? We all know how important support is. If you get Mortefi, I suggest you building him. You'll likely find him less useful early game, but the moment you understand echo sets, the moment you understand your team comps as well, especially when you hit abyss where you need to really kill stuff fast, Mortefi here will shine. A team example here, we got Baizhi, Mortefi, and GN. I already showed you how the fight looks like. It looks insane, numbers after numbers. In that team, he simply fits perfectly. So yes, keep an eye out on Mortefi. Moving up next, we have Danjin. I have hyped her out quite a bit because, well, I just love her gameplay, right? You risk getting to 1 HP in exchange of doing the most damage you can, but with that gimmick, it made her the strongest 4-star DPS ever. But as you all know, it comes with high skill requirement. There are a lot of people who literally tried a solo dungeon against the toughest of bosses, and her damage is so good that she can solo clear. But if she's alone, more than likely you'll see herself being at 1 health. She has a heal though on her foot circuit if you activate them, but without a dedicated healer, she'll always have less health than she gains back. In exchange though, she can do a lot of damage. At least among the 4-star, no one else can beat her, which is why as a 4-star that could be really accessible. Maybe you got lucky with 1 temple, you got a Danjin, didn't get GN, sure, and now you have a 4-star DPS that can self-heal, does a lot of damage as well, helping you out with world exploration or being the main DPS for your other abyss team. And not to mention Danjin and Mortefi as well, they are in the first banner, GN's banner. They are rated up, so you can technically get the whole list I have here just by pulling on GN's banner, right? Not saying you have to go for GN, but these 4-stars really good. Danjin's team example here, we got Baizhi, Danjin plus any support / sub DPS, depends on your account. But overall, for free-to-play players where you don't have a lot of options for 5 stars, I'm gonna just assume you're pulling 0, which is impossible. Danjin can be your main carry DPS for any scenario. She'll do fine if you're good enough. A scenario I can think of where skill matters is when you're fighting a lot of mobs, or maybe one elite with a lot of mobs at the side. It is very hard to evade all of them, especially some random projectiles from your blind spot. Like, how are you gonna evade that? And the fact that you could be on very low HP, it's just really scary to use Danjin actually. But if you're skilled enough, you absolutely could. And with that, I think we have the 4, obvious answers. These 4 characters are really, really good if you're free to play. Let's move on to the honorable mentions. First on the list, we have Chixia. She has incredibly high ult damage multiplier, which puts her as a role of a main DPS. With how she plays, she's fairly decent as an early game DPS. In fact, when I first played CBD2, I had Chixia just carry me through the whole story. But I wouldn't rank her actually in the list because here's the issue with her. She requires players to hold E for a fairly long period without being interrupted. That's her fourth circuit skill, which is basically her just holding her gun out and shooting a lot of bullets at the enemy. If you hold it long enough, where it's 30 bullets, if you shoot 30 bullets, you get to activate one more hit that really hurts. But if you're ever interrupted in the process of doing that, be it swapping out, be it timing it wrong where the enemy's gone while you're trying to shoot them, she certainly takes a fair bit of skill to use as well. But in exchange though, her damage is actually pretty damn good. Her ult really hits hard. With all that said, I would deem her as a non-essential character to build for endgame. But in early game, if you really want to build her, sure. I wouldn't hard invest in her though. But in the end, it depends on what you got. If you somehow can't get Danjin, you can't get any banner characters, and you just have the free ones, somehow your beginner banner just deleted itself, well, she's just your main DPS, guys. You know, you laugh at me, but there are people who do that. Moving on though, what about the rest? There are more free characters like Sanhua. There are also more banner characters like, say, Taochi, Alto, all of them. The TLDR is that they are non-essential. Including Chixia, none of the other 4 stars that's like free or accessible are that valuable that I would call them must builds, right? In fact, there's really no must build characters. Build whatever the heck you want to play and you play well with. But take the free Sanhua, for example. She has good damage, but it's just that her gimmick is a little bit hard to handle. You have to time her charge attack well, and you have to attack through the block of ice that she plays. A lot of these stuff aren't that easy to do in like a high octane combat scenario. Let's say in Abyss where there's a lot of mobs, or say there's a boss that's just jumping around. Not saying at all they're bad, I just wouldn't call them must builds. Making this list, I'm hoping to compile a group of characters where they really help you out with progressing. They really help you out even in endgame as well. Which from the top again, I think Baizhi, Rover, Mortefi, and Danjin fits those description exactly, but not quite the rest. However, I'm not Jesus Christ, so if you disagree, hey, let me know in the comments, but please keep it civil, okay? I will be making like a more detailed guide for each of every one of these characters. The thing about all of them is that they have their own gimmick. It takes forever to get through all of them. I want to be as detailed as possible, so you know what? A video for another time, and that will be all. We have the Aligator Godzilamasu. You ever wonder like some random pictures you found online? I wonder how they're doing right now in real life. I hope they're doing well. And that will be all for my pitch right here to try and convince you to build some characters. Goofy shit aside though, every single character in Wuthering Waves can be used if you play them correctly. This list is more like a general list where if you have no clue what you're doing, you know what? Might as well get these. You definitely won't be disappointed. But always remember, this is like a free-to-play list. I'm assuming you get no 5 stars. But the truth of the matter is you will get 5 stars. If we're just going pure meta play, 5-star will still generally be better. They have better stats. They have easier to use gimmick. Overall convenient as well. You don't have to go like silent while or time your charge attack. It's fun though. So if you're good enough, you could go for that too. It's a game with a lot of freedom. And that will be all. Hope I helped you out. Let me know in the comments down below what you want to find out, what you want to see from me. Maybe I'll cover them. We'll see. And that is all. Take care.